Chapter 3 Grand Ambition in Zhang Xiaofan's eyes. Whether it was the white clouds or the dark clouds in the sky, he had never seen clouds as close to the ground as the black clouds tonight. The thunder had never been so deafening, and the lightning had never been so dazzling, almost making it difficult for him to look directly at them. It seemed as if the sky itself was about to collapse. He stood there dumbfounded, watching the black-robed figures in the grass temple glaring at each other, ready to engage in a battle of magic. Suddenly, a deafening thunderclap resounded, ringing in his ears, and at that moment, he saw a dazzling lightning bolt streak across the sky, striking down to the earth, landing on the long sword of one of the black-robed figures. In an instant, the black-robed figure's clothes swelled up, his eyes widened, as if they were about to burst. At that moment, within the grass temple, illuminated intensely by the lightning, it was as bright as daylight. The lightning blooming on the tip of the sword in the darkness of the night was so beautiful that Zhang Xiaofan held his breath, and in the eyes of Puzi, there appeared once again a strange fervor. Is this the great power of Taoist magic? Only hearing a loud shout from the black-robed figure, he gestured with his left hand, exerting all his strength to shake his wrist, and as thunder resounded, electric rays shot out from the sword towards Puzi. Along the way, grass, trees, bricks, and stones all trembled and flew, leaving behind a deep scar in the midst of them. Puzi retreated 3 steps in a row, withdrawing his hand seals, palms pressed together, his face solemn, emitting a faint golden light all over his body, murmuring softly, "May the Buddha be merciful." With a crack, only 7 jade prayer beads left in front of him shattered into pieces, transforming into a giant Buddha character 3 feet in front of him, dazzling with golden light, too bright to look at directly. The next moment, the lightning and the Buddha character collided. Zhang Xiaofan suddenly felt his heart beat violently, as if all the blood in his body was flowing backwards in an instant. His limbs went limp, unable to breathe, feeling as if in that moment, the wind ceased, the thunder stopped, and the entire world stood still. Then, he involuntarily flew backward, at the moment when he hadn't even had time to feel afraid. He only saw a dazzling white light, far more brilliant than the sun in the sky. The entire grass temple, centered around the 2 figures in combat, shattered and flew in all directions, including into the sky. In his empty heart, he only felt the piercing sound of the wind rushing past his ears. He felt afraid, subconsciously wanting to curl up, but powerless, only able to let himself drift towards an unknown place. A thought arose in his mind. Am I going to die? Intense fear suddenly struck him, cold sweat breaking out all over his body, trembling slightly. When death stands before you, how do you face it? He fainted unconscious. Puzi slowly walked over, staggering, supporting Zhang Xiaofan and Lin Jingyu under his ribs until he found a slightly cleaner place, gently placing the 2 children down. He felt intense pain all over his body, almost as if he were about to split apart, unable to support himself any longer, and slumped down. He looked down at his chest. Through the burnt monk's robe, he could vaguely see a black aura gradually encircling, leaving only a small area in the center of his chest untouched. He sighed bitterly, reaching into his chest. His hand trembled violently, and after a while, he slowly pulled out a red pill, about the size of a fingertip, plain and unremarkable. Puzi sighed, speaking softly. I never thought the ghost doctor would be right after all. In the end, I have to take this 3-day death pill. He hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded and swallowed the pill. Then, he lifted his head and looked towards the distant mountains. Finally, rain began to fall from the sky. The Qingyun Mountains stood tall amidst the wind and rain, vague and mysterious. Taoist techniques are truly mysterious, being able to harness the powers of celestial beings. If they could be corroborated with our Buddhist practices, complementing each other's strengths and weaknesses, we could certainly unravel the mystery of eternal life and death. It's just a pity that ZhuXian master's cultivation surpasses mine by far, yet he, like my 3 senior brothers, cannot let go of sectarian prejudices and social status. Alas, Puzi sighed heavily, withdrawing his gaze to the 2 children. By now, the rain was getting heavier, drenching their heads and faces. The grass temple had been shattered during the recent battle, and there was nowhere nearby to shelter from the storm. His heart suddenly tightened, unable to help but worrying about the 2 children. He had just exerted his true essence forcefully, using the miraculous technique of the great prajna from the Tianyin Temple, harnessing the power of the precious Buddhist treasure, the jade prayer beads, to generate great demon-suppressing power, which had just managed to block the incredibly powerful divine sword techniques of the sinister figure and counter-inflicted heavy damage on him, forcing him to flee in shock. But with his heavily wounded body, he had taken another blow from Taoist magic. Already running on fumes, with even the last thread of hope extinguished, currently, he was only barely clinging to life by swallowing the miraculous medicine given by the ghost doctor, the 3-day death pill, extending his lifespan by merely 3 days. That fiend may be severely wounded, but his root cause remains unharmed. After I leave, he will surely return to kill and silence witnesses by then. Not only these 2 children, but the lives of the entire village may be in danger. What should I do? Puzi's mind was in turmoil, while his cultivation and understanding of the Tao were extremely high. Upon knowing his imminent death, his mind was somewhat unsettled. Moreover, he was worried about the innocent lives of the villagers. However, the fiendish person seemed to hold a high position within the Qingyun Sect. If he were to hastily seek help from the mountain, it might not yield success and could even backfire. But what troubled him most was that his lifelong ambition could not be fulfilled. As one of the 4 great monks of the Tianyin Temple, he was highly respected and honored throughout the world. However, for him, what was more important was unraveling the mystery of life and death, breaking free from the cycle of reincarnation. Yet, 50 years ago, he had realized that no matter how diligently he cultivated the Buddhist Tao, it could only enhance his power and cultivation, but could not unravel the mystery of life and death. After much contemplation, decades later, he had actually thought of an unprecedented solution. Nowadays, the 3 major religions of Buddhism, Taoism, and demonism were flourishing, with the highest attainments in their respective arts and techniques. The Demon Sect had a notorious reputation for its cruel and wicked practices, which people abhorred. However, Taoist techniques were profound and mysterious, excelling in their own right. If they could collaborate and study together, they could break through the current impasse. However, he had never expected that his 3 broad-minded senior brothers would unanimously oppose it, considering it heretical and delusional. Earnestly advising against it, he felt a sense of regret. He had visited prestigious Tao sects multiple times, even ascending Qingyun Mountain several times, only to be gently declined by ZhuXian Master, the head of the Qingyun Sect.